Last week, I think I mentioned that the floor astrologically is kind of tilting. This week, it kind of drops out. So Wednesday, August the 12th at 1:36 in the afternoon, there's a total solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Leo, and the moon passes exactly in front of the sun. And for about 2.5 minutes over the North Atlantic, the middle of the day really goes dark. And I think that's the loudest thing in this episode, but it's really not the strangest thing in this episode. I think the strangest thing is that we're gonna have almost like 87 hours of the moon being void, of course. 87 hours, and there's 168 hours the week. That is 52% of the week where the moon has finished its business in a sign and hasn't begun the next one. And then, because don't forget, when it's moon void, of course, it just basically means that there are no after the sun's done after the moon is done in a certain sign, there's no longer there's no aspects for a certain period of time sometimes. And that's what we call a moon void, of course, because it's not really making contact or communication with anything else existing in the sky for that time being. I like to refer to them sometimes like mini Mercury retrogrades almost, but not quite as that energy. But more than half of the same week that the eclipse is happening is going to be unanchored, like really a 25-hour void that swallows all of Monday. Then there's a 43-hour void that starts Thursday afternoon and does not end until Saturday morning, and then Friday has no exact aspects at all, not one the entire day. I've been looking at the sky for a while now, and I don't think I've seen a lot of time frames where the sky stands this still, this plainly. So that's kind of what we're working with. One enormous event on Wednesday and a week built out of almost entirely empty space around it. But anyway, same as always, we're going to go straight through Sunday through Saturday, one day at a time. Everything that happens on a day, it lives on that day. So I'm not going to really be jumping around. Also, if you want to follow along on paper, every void window I'm going through, the day by day log, and the two eclipse questions. I even have some room on there to write. Print it out. You can keep it next to you, or you can just download it on your phone. It's at my website, cosmicallycreated.free resources. You can join the email list, and then you'll be sent a password. There's other stuff on there as well if you like. And I'm going to always be adding stuff. So I'm going to have some stickers on there, like some digital stickers. So yeah. So first let's talk kind of like about the light and like where we are in the solar cycle. So we're in the last third of Leo season. The sun this week is going to be starting at 16 degrees of Leo, and it's going to be ending at 23 degrees. So on Sunday, August the 9th, New York is going to get about 13 hours and 59 minutes of daylight. That's the first time this year that the number actually starts with a 13. I think that's interesting. By Saturday, August the 15th, it's going to be 13 hours and 45 minutes. So now, because I'm going through this, I'm keeping track of how, like, when our time is losing, because I always end up just, like, in that time frame, like, when did this start? When did this happen, But now we have 14 more minutes gone, and we crossed under 14 hours this week, which is the kind of threshold I feel like people don't really announce, but we all feel around 8 p.m., right? When it's all of a sudden just darker than it was before. And now last week, I said that Leo is the felt experience of peak output happening exactly when the input starts to decline. And this week, that is going to stop being just a metaphor because the heat is still on and the days are visibly getting shorter, and an eclipse is going to be landing right in the middle of it. So that's kind of the thing that I want you to hold, right? Because the zodiac, it says Leo is about radiance, being visible, and surviving, being visible. And this week, I find the sky putting the light out in the middle of the sign. That's about light. And I just don't think there's anything subtle about that. Two more background notes and then we'll get to Sunday. So Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto all stay retrograde this week. Chiron stays retrograde, still not sitting at quite 1 degree of Taurus, but that's 4 bodies in reverse under everything. And the moon is going to still be out of bounds when the week opens. It's been outside the sun's range since last Thursday. It comes back in at around 12:29 a.m. Tuesday morning. So the first 2 days of this week are still running on like last week's unsupervised feeling I referred to. And then it resolves about 36 hours before the eclipse. So let's get to Sunday. It's like kind of like the last normal day. The moon is going to be starting the day off at 27 degrees of Gemini, out of bounds, and it's going to be moving pretty fast today. 1:27 a.m. The moon will be conjuncting Mars, and this will be that the moon's last aspect in Gemini. The moon and Mars are going to meet basically very much at the end of the sign, and both of them are about to leave. So if you're up at 1:30 in the morning, wired, unable to settle, this is that kind of energy. And I think the out of balance part is going to make it louder. And then 1:27 to 3:45, we're going to have about a 2-hour and 18-minute moon void of course. And that's going to be the shortest void of the week by a wide margin. And it's going to be happening when you're asleep. So, ignore it. I only mention it just so the list is basically complete, because I like to mention every single aspect on this one. So 3:45 a.m., the moon enters Cancer, and then we get to 5:09 a.m., where the moon will sextile Chiron. 8:11 a.m., the moon will square Venus. 10:30 a.m., the moon will square Neptune. So Cancer moon on a Sunday morning squaring Venus and then Neptune before lunch, that's really kind of like a soft, foggy, melancholy type of stretch. Not really bad, just more watery. You might feel a low grade missing vibe for somebody, or a vague sense that something's just kind of not right that you cannot name. But that's typically Neptune. So I typically don't go looking for a cause, because there probably is often not one. And then 12:28 p.m., Mercury's going to enter Leo. So Mercury's going to finally leave Cancer. It's been there for a while, feeling everything and saying only about a third of it. But Leo Mercury's different, warmer, louder, more expressive, considerably more invested in being heard. It likes to speak in more of stories instead of hints, and is walking into the sign where the eclipse is going to land in 3 days, which matters because it means your thinking and your talking gets pulled into the eclipse story, whether you planned on it or not. So what you really should do with this energy is, I would say, y'all should treat Sunday as the last normal day. Genuinely get those groceries, do the laundry, answer whatever message you've been sitting on. From Monday morning until Saturday, the week is either void or eclipse, and normal logistics are going to probably get a little harder to execute. So if I had to put Sunday in one line, I would say a fast, watery, slightly foggy Sunday with one real event at lunch. Use it to get your life in order, because you may not get another clean day for just a little bit. Then we get to August the 10th. So moon then goes void in Cancer. It starts at 12 degrees. It's going to be still out of bound. And I want to set this up properly because I think that Monday is one of the strangest days on the calendar this year. So 1:15 a.m., Mercury's going to be squaring Chiron. The brand new Leo Mercury, immediately squaring retrograde Chiron in Taurus. Overnight. That's the aspect where the thing you want to say out loud runs directly into the reason you've never said it. If you wake up Monday with the sentence already forming, that's where it came from. Then 3:30 a.m., the moon will be squaring Saturn, and that will be the moon's last aspect to Cancer. So then we get to 3:30 a.m. Monday to 4:38 a.m. Tuesday, moon voiding course in Cancer, 25 hours and 8 minutes. Y'all heard that? The moon goes void at 3:30 a.m. in the morning on Monday and does not enter Leo until 4:38 the following morning. So every waking hour of your Monday is going to be a void moon. And this is the first big one. So I'm going to re-explain what that actually is plainly, because a lot of us are going to be waking up to this on Monday. So again, the moon travels through the sign, right? It travels through a sign. While it's there, it makes aspects to the planets connect, it connects with certain things based on the placement of where it's at. And then at some point, it ends up making the very last connection. And after that, it's still sitting in that sign, but it has nothing left to connect to it. And it also has not entered the next sign yet. So that gap is what we call the void of course in astrology. It's not dangerous. It's just unanchored. Things you start in a void, they just tend to not really develop the way you expected, because the moon's not really touching anything that could carry them forward. So normally a void is a few hours and we work around it. This, you can't work around it because it is the day. So, and this is why I refer to it kind of like as a mini Mercury retrograde. Kind of the same rules apply a little bit. Just try to avoid launching anything on Monday. Don't try to have a defining conversation. Try not to sign, hire, fire, pitch, propose, or decide. Not because I'm saying something bad's going to happen, but it just may not stick. And you might end up having to redo it. But there's still plenty of things that are excellent to do on Monday. Finish things, clean, organize, do some repetitive work. anything that's already in motion with no outcome attached. If you have a backlog of things to do, Monday is the best day of the month to just eat it and get it done. Now, let's get inside that void because we're going to go back. Yeah. Let's get inside that void because we got some aspects that are going to land. Okay. 2:08 p.m. Venus is going to be trining Pluto. Now, this is and it's Aquarius and Pluto. This is a very deep, easy, magnetic, a genuinely good aspect for understanding something about a relationship that you just may not have been able to articulate or verbalize or like put in words. And then we get to 6:01 p.m. Venus is going to be opposing Neptune in opposition. And then that's going to be 4 hours later from when Venus is trining Pluto. So Venus in Libra opposite Neptune in Aries is almost like this idealization aspect. It's one where you see somebody as who you want them to be instead of who they are. Or maybe where you feel a wave of longing for somebody that is mostly a story you've been telling yourself. And it can be beautiful, but it can also be where people convince themselves of things. And I want you to notice what I noticed because I think that detail makes Monday interesting. The single most romantically confusing aspect of the week, it lands in the middle of a 25-hour void, which just gives me the energy of feel it, write it down, but don't be texting it. And then we get to 9:43 p.m., Mars will trine the North Node. Mars at the very last degree of Gemini, hours from changing signs. This is a quiet aspect, mostly a marker that something is about to move. So what to do with Monday? Clear your desk, not your future. Okay? And if Monday evening makes you want to reach out to somebody, wait till Thursday. And I'm going to tell you why when we get there. And if I had to put Monday in one line, I would say it's a full walking day of void of moon with one beautiful and one deceptive Venus aspect sitting inside it. So finish things, decide nothing, do not sin. So then we get to Tuesday, and this is the busiest day of the week by a wide margin. We have 12 separate events, and it is the last day before the eclipse. So 12:29 a.m., the moon comes back in bounds. After 5 days outside the sun's range, the moon, it returns to normal territory just after midnight. Now, if the last few days or several days have felt slightly unreal, that could start to settle now. Then 4:30 a.m., Mars entered Cancer. This is a big one because Mars has been in Gemini a long time. And Gemini Mars is just this very scattered energy. Like it goes in 6 directions. It argues. It starts things. It does not finish. It likes to fight with its words. Cancer Mars is a completely different animal. It's very indirect and protective. Not trying to be confronting or defending. It just moves slowly. And it's very hard to talk out of something once it's made its choice. And see, Mars in Cancer is also traditionally just considered uncomfortable because Cancer, it wants Mars to want things in a sideways way instead of head on. So the anger kind of goes underground more so, and motivation gets tied more into who you're protecting rather than what you are chasing. And like, notice the timing. Mars changes signs 33 hours before the solar eclipse. So your drive is relocating right before the reset. And then we get to 4:38 a.m. And this is where the moon enters Leo. 8 minutes only after Mars changes signs, the moon walks into the eclipse sign and begins the run up. Then we got a few more, like quite a few more. So we just run through these real quick. 6 a.m., moon squares Chiron. 9:41 a.m., moon conjuncts Mercury. 11:03 a.m., moon opposition Pluto. 11:20 a.m., moon trine Neptune. 12:36 p.m., moon sextile Venus. 1:20 p.m., moon sextile Uranus. So that's 6 aspects between 6 a.m. and 1:20 p.m. Like literally the moon is sweeping through Leo and hitting everything and gathering the week up. And I think the main one to feel is the 11:03 a.m. Pluto opposition, because Leo moon opposite Aquarius Pluto is the confrontation basically between what I need to be seen for and what the collective actually wants from me. It can arrive as like this power thing at work or plain flat moment of just feeling unseen, and it typically passes in a couple of hours. And then we get to 8:01 p.m., moon conjunct Jupiter. And I think this is a good one because moon conjunct Jupiter in Leo the night before the eclipse is just like this warmth and generosity and expansiveness and the feeling that things are going to actually be okay, like the sigh of relief. It's the last big lift before Wednesday, and it's worth being present for. So like Tuesday evening, it's the emotional high point of the entire week. I think you should do something with people. Eat something good. That's the night to do it. And then 9:19 p.m., Mercury's going to oppose Pluto. 11:38 p.m., Mercury's going to trine Neptune. And then 11:46 p.m., Venus is going to trine Uranus. So that's 3 more overnight. Mercury opposite Pluto around 9 p.m. It can drag a conversation somewhere unexpectedly deep. And honestly, I think the night before an eclipse is fine. Like, let it go deep. But what should you do with this whole day? I think Tuesday is your one functional day. Do the thing that requires you to be sharp. And then spend Tuesday night with people you like under that Jupiter conjunction. Because Wednesday is a different kind of day. And then if I could put Tuesday in one line, I would say that Mars changes signs. Then the moon comes back in bounds. 12 aspects. In fire? Yeah. And the evening is the warmest few hours of the week. So just use it all. Then we get to Wednesday. This is the eclipse day. Moon in Leo starting at 11 degrees, closing in on the sun. 4:28 a.m. The moon's going to trine Saturn. This is going to be a steadying aspect before dawn. A little bit of small, mercy. And then we get to 10:41 a.m. Mars is going to sextile Chiron. Brand new Cancer Mars is going to be making this easy aspect to Chiron. It's a very protective instinct meeting the tender spot and the two of them getting along in a quiet, useful, and easy to miss way. Now here we go. 1:36 p.m. The total solar eclipse. New moon at 20 degrees and 2 minutes of Leo. So first, the physical facts, because I think they are worth having straight. A solar eclipse is a new moon where the alignment is exact enough that the moon shadow actually lands on Earth. Not close, exact. Where the moon is covering the sun completely. Now, the greatest eclipse, it happens at 1:45 p.m. over the North Atlantic, just off the coast of Iceland. The path of totality, it runs across Greenland, Iceland, and northern Spain. If you're in the continental U.S., you're not going to see it. But that doesn't change anything about how it works, because eclipses have never required you to watch them. Now, the astrology. Kind of the part I actually care about. So this is actually a south node eclipse. So the lunar nodes are the 2 points where the moon's path crosses the sun's path, and an eclipse can only happen near them, which is the whole mechanism and why eclipses come in seasons rather than randomly. So the north node at 29 degrees of Aquarius, which puts the south node at 29 degrees of Leo, and this eclipse is at 20 degrees of Leo, less than 10 degrees of the south node. You see, north node eclipses tend to be about intake, the new thing, the new direction, something arriving. South node eclipses are the other one, release, ending, the thing you have outgrown and have been holding anyway. And here's the piece that I think almost nobody's going to mention is that the nodal axis just changed. So the nodes backed into Aquarius and Leo in late July about 3 weeks ago, and this is not the last eclipse of a long series winding down. This is the first eclipse of a brand new one. And I think that combination is unusual and very much worth naming because the South Node eclipse, which is about release, opening, a fresh series, which is about a whole new area of life coming under review for the next year and a half. So it's not endings as in these tidy conclusions. It's more like something that gets cleared out at the very start to make room for the next 18 months that they're going to need. And what's clearing? Leo at 20 degrees. Which is the sign of being seen, radiance, the role you play, the thing you're known for, the performance you've gotten good at. South Node eclipse in Leo, it wants to know what part of being seen has become a job you cannot quit. Where are you still performing a version of yourself that used to be true? And I want to be careful and honest here because eclipses do not do things to you on a schedule. Nothing dramatic, by the way, is going to happen at 1:36 p.m. What eclipse reliably do is compress. Things that are going to shift anyway, they start to shift faster and they shift around the eclipse rather than exactly on it. So give it a 2-week window on either side. And the effect, it stretches over months, not days. A solar eclipse is a new moon with a volume up and the timeline is pretty long. Then 1:36 p.m., the moon goes void the instant the eclipse is exact. And I want to sit on this for a second because I think this is genuinely remarkable. The moon's last aspect in Leo is in conjunction to the sun, which is the eclipse. So the eclipse is simultaneously the biggest event of the year and the beginning of a 16-hour and 42-minute void. 1:36 p.m. Wednesday to 6:18 a.m. Thursday. Void, of course. This guy is triggering something enormous and then it is immediately removing every handhold. So Wednesday afternoon and evening are not for acting, they're for noticing. Whatever comes up between the eclipse on Thursday morning, write it down and leave it alone. Don't try to restructure your life at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. And then at 4:47 p.m., we're going to have Mercury sextile Uranus, and this is going to be one aspect inside the void. Leo, Mercury sextile Gemini Uranus is like the sudden insight, like the thing that you realize right in the middle of the eclipse afternoon. And I think that one's worth catching, so keep something to write on. What to do with this day of Wednesday? I think nothing structural. Take the afternoon off if you can. If you cannot, keep the day light and administrative. And do the eclipse practice, which I'm going to give you at the end of Thursday. And then if I had to put Wednesday in one line, I guess what I would say, this total solar eclipse happens at 20 degrees Leo at 1:36 p.m. A South Node release opening a brand new series in a 17-hour void that starts at the exact moment it goes exact. So notice everything, but do nothing. Now, Thursday, moon void when the day starts in the last degrees of Leo. 5:53 a.m., the true node stations direct at 29 degrees of Aquarius. So same honesty as last week. The true node is a calculated point, not a body, and it oscillates consistently. It went retrograde 8 days ago, and now it goes direct. And this is a wobble, not a station in the way of planet stations. I'm telling you this because it's in the data and because I think the position is interesting, not because Thursday morning feels like the node did something. But what I find interesting is his position because 29 degrees and some change of Aquarius, the node has been parked at the very end of that sign for weeks, and the eclipse just fired off on the other end of that axis. So the whole Leo and Aquarius story is sitting at the, I think it's what's called the Antarctic degree. Anaretic, if I'm spelling it correctly. Degree, the last one, basically, and the one that means to finish this. And then 5:56 a.m., the moon's going to be opposing the node. 6:18 a.m., moon's going to be entering Virgo, and the moon leaves the eclipse sign. And that is a real shift in feeling because Leo to Virgo is expansive to practical, hot to cool, story to list. Then 7:41 a.m., the moon will be trining Chiron. And at 8:43 a.m., the moon will be sextile in Mars. And that's two very easy morning aspects. Thursday morning, I think, is the best working window of the week. And it's also basically the only one. Because between 6:18 a.m. and 3:23 p.m., the moon is in Virgo, an aspect, and it's actually functional. So use Thursday morning because it's going to be your last usable stretch until Saturday. Then we have 12:22 p.m., Mercury sextile in Venus, Leo, Mercury sextile Libra, Venus. This is very easy, warm, articulate. The best communication aspect of the week, and it lands at lunch. So remember Monday for Monday I said when I said if you want to reach out somebody to wait, this is basically the wait that I was saying to wait for, I guess. Because Mercury and Venus supporting each other, Moon and Virgo connected, eclipse in the rear view. If there's a message to send, I would say send it Thursday, like around lunchtime. And then 3:23 p.m., we have our last aspect in Virgo when the moon squares Uranus, and this is the biggest void of the week starting. So 3:23 p.m., Thursday, to 10:19 a.m. Saturday, moon void of course in Virgo. 42 hours and 56 minutes, nearly 2 days. That is the longest void I've talked about on the show. It starts on a Thursday afternoon and it does not end until Saturday mid-morning. It contains all of Friday. So I have an eclipse practice for you, and Thursday afternoon is when to do it, okay? Because you're heading into 43 hours or nothing. So use it on purpose instead of drifting through it, all right? And I'm going to come back and I'm going to, maybe not, I don't know. First question, maybe I'll just answer now, is the first question I put up here is, what am I still being seen as that I've already stopped being? And I'm not saying what do people misunderstand about you, because I think that is a different and easier question. This one is about the version of you that was real, that you built on purpose, that worked, and you've quietly outgrown it while still continuing to perform. It's a very specific question because it's also one for me. And then the second question is, what would I lose if I stopped? And I think you should answer that one honestly because it usually is the real reason. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's a relationship that's organized around the old version. Sometimes it's just that you don't know who you are without it. And you don't have to solve either question because a South Node eclipse takes months. I think it's beneficial to just name it in writing, in your head, in your notes app, this week while the sky has cleared the whole room for you. And so if I could put Thursday in one line, I would say this is our last usable morning of the week, a great window at lunch for the message you've been holding, and then 43 hours of open space starting at 3:23 p.m. So send the thing, then sit down with the questions. Now, Friday, August 14th, nothing. Moon in Virgo, void all day. Nothing happens on Friday. No aspects, no ingresses, no stations, no phases, not one timed event in 24 hours. The moon is void from the moment the day starts, the moment it ends. I checked it 3 times because I literally could not believe it. But this is the emptiest day of the year so far. 2 days after a solar eclipse, and the sky goes completely silent. And I don't think that's a coincidence, and I don't think it's bad, because after a compression event, you get a decompression. This is that. This is the exhale. So don't fight it. Don't schedule Friday. Don't try to force a productive day out of it, because you're probably going to spend the whole thing feeling like you were pushing a car, okay? Anything you launch on Friday is going nowhere. Anything you decide on Friday, you're going to have to revisit. So I think that Friday is for resting. Long walks, cleaning something, cooking something that takes hours, sleeping in, sitting outside, being bored, reading the thing you haven't read. If you did the 2 questions on Thursday, I think Friday is when the answers show up in sideways ways while you're doing something else, because I think, at least for me, that's usually how it works. So, like, if I had one practical note for Friday, I would say, if you have to work on Friday, most people do, keep it to maintenance. Inboxing, filing stuff, the reoccurring stuff. Don't put anything important on Friday's calendar, and don't take a meeting where any big decisions get to be made. And then if I had to put Friday in like one line, I would say this is the emptiest day on the calendar. In 365 days, this is the emptiest. 0 aspects, void all day, 2 days after eclipse. Rest is the assignment, not the consolation prize. Then we get to the 15th of August, and this is where the void finally breaks and you can move again. 7:22 a.m., Mercury's going to conjunct Jupiter in Leo, so it's breaking pretty well, okay? Because Mercury conjunct Jupiter is the aspect of the big idea, the good conversation, the thing that suddenly makes sense and feels much larger than it did. And in Leo, it is expressive, generous, and a little grand. And after 43 hours of silence, the first thing this guy does is going to hand you a thought. If something clicks Saturday morning, this is it. Write it down before you lose it. Because Mercury and Jupiter together is where some great plans can get made. So then we get to 10:19 a.m. where the moon enters Libra and the void is going to be ending. And this is going to be 43 hours after it started. And the moon moves into Libra and joins Venus there. And so the whole mood shifts towards people, balance, repair. And then 3:36 p.m., the moon's going to square Mars. And this is going to be a friction point mid-afternoon. Libra, moon, square, Cancer, Mars is the first real test of that new Mars placement. And it probably shows up as someone being indirect about being annoyed. And that could also be possibly you. 5:13 p.m., moon trines Pluto. 5:32 p.m., moon opposition Neptune. 8:04 p.m., moon trine Uranus. 3 in the evening. So the Neptune opposition at 5:32, I find, is the same idealizing energy that ran through Monday night. So if there's somebody you have been feeling romantic about and slightly unrealistic about, Saturday evening brings it back around. But this time, the moon is not void. This time, it's connected, which means Saturday, unlike Monday, is a day where you can actually act on something. And if you were to do anything with Saturday, I think that Saturday is the first day in the 5 where starting something makes sense. If the eclipse clears something out and Thursday and Friday let you sit with it, Saturday is when you get to do at least one small thing about it. One, not a whole life. Maybe send the message, make the appointment, sign up for the thing. Now, if I could put Saturday in one line, I would say that Mercury meets Jupiter at 7:22 a.m. and it hands you an idea. And the void breaks at 10:19, and by evening, you can finally move, and this is the first real day of the new chapter. Now, let's talk about what's coming, okay? Saturday, August 22nd, 10:18 p.m., the sun will be entering Virgo. This is where Leo season ends. The year will turn to discernment, editing, and deciding what to keep. Just a little quick side note, by the way. If you have ever wondered, like, what is a cusp? This is a very good example. Like, that cusp don't fully exist in the way that we use them. So if you're born right, if there's someone who's born right now, August 22nd, 2026, and they were born at 8 p.m. later on in life, when they try to look up, like, what is their birthday? This is where the time will come into play and be a necessity for them to fully understand which sun sign they are, because of the fact that at 8 p.m., the sun would still be in Leo. But if you were born at 10:18, 10:20 p.m., you are a Virgo. That's where the cusp comes in. August the 25th, well, that is the Tuesday. Tuesday, August 25th, 7:04 a.m., Mercury will be entering Virgo. Mercury's going home. This is where the thinking gets more sharper and considerably more particular. Then August 28th, which is a Friday, at 12:18 a.m., the lunar eclipse at 4 degrees and 54 minutes of Pisces happens. And this is the other half of the pair, 16 days out, and it's on the other axis, Pisces and Virgo, which means eclipse season is not one story this year, it's two. Remember the one with Leo Aquarius? So where the Leo eclipse asks, where am I performing? The Pisces one, it wants to know what are you still dissolving into and what needs an actual boundary, because lunar eclipses tend to feel more emotional and more immediate than the solar ones, and they can surface things rather than clear them. I'm going to do a full episode on that. So this is where I leave you. This week, it puts the sky out, the light out in the sky in the middle of the sign that is literally about light, Leo. And then it removes the ground for 87 hours out of 168. So you can't just busy your way past it. And I don't think that's punishment. I sometimes think that's the only way this kind of thing ever actually works. Because you don't get to see what you've outgrown while you're still performing it, right? You have to stop for long enough to notice that you're even tired. And this week gives you a 25-hour Monday and a 43-hour Thursday into Saturday and a Friday with nothing in it at all, specifically so that you can. Tuesday night, I say, sit with people you love under that Jupiter moon. Wednesday afternoon, notice everything and change nothing. Thursday, inquire with yourself, what are you still being seen as that you've already stopped being? And Friday, don't feel it. The light comes back on Saturday morning. It always does. That is the other half of what the solar cycle is actually teaching. And it is the half that people forget about while they're standing in the dark. If you want to work with this eclipse instead of just surviving it, the free seasonal guide is over at cosmicallycreated.com. It breaks down how to read the solar cycle in your own life month by month. It is free. It is yours. Go get it. And there's a whole resource library with plenty of other resources, as well as a 6-page guide to this week, free at the resource vault. All you got to do is talk with me, okay, boo? But your birth chart for the seasonal blueprint is read as seasonal architecture, not predictions. A map of which parts of the year you're built for and which ones you have to work with on purpose. That and sticker bundles are both at cosmicallycreated.com. The sticker bundles will be at cosmicallycreated.shop soon. All times in this episode are Eastern, and they're for the weeks of August the 9th through August the 15th. Thank you for spending Eclipse Week with me. I will see you on the other side.